Part 3. Ashes. County Kerry, Ireland, August 1847. The first sound was the cart. Kevin heard it before dawn. Iron-rimmed wheels rattled over the rough road, accompanied by the steady clop of horses. It was the sound he had heard many times over the previous fortnight. Each time it had stopped somewhere else. Today it stopped outside his own gate. He sat upright on his straw mattress. Anne opened her eyes immediately. "They're here." Neither of them spoke again. There was nothing left to say. Sean and Michael were already awake. Both boys stood in the doorway, staring toward the lane where 2 mounted constables waited beside an estate wagon. Behind them stood 6 labourers carrying picks, crowbars, and heavy sledgehammers. They'd not come to negotiate, they'd come to erase. Maeve clutched Anne's skirt. "Are they taking our house?" Anne knelt beside her. "We're going to gather our things. But this is our home." Anne could not answer. The estate bailiff, Mr. Cartwright, removed his hat as Kevin stepped outside. "Mr. Kiely." Kevin nodded silently. "I've been instructed to see that the order is carried out today." "I asked for another fortnight." "I know." "My boys have been trying to find somewhere." "I know." "My wife has nowhere to go." "I know." Cartwright looked genuinely miserable. "I've argued for several families, and I lost every time." Kevin looked behind him at the men carrying their tools. "They're in a hurry. They've many cottages yet to visit." There was no shouting, no violence, only dreadful efficiency. Beds were carried outside, the family table followed, then stools, blankets, cooking pots, fishing nets, Maeve's little wooden boat, the one Michael had carved only weeks before. Anne carefully wrapped the family Bible inside a wood blanket before placing it atop a chest. She stopped for a moment beside the fireplace. 3 black marks were still visible on the stone lintel, one for each child's height as they had grown. She ran her fingers gently across them. No one would ever see them again. Neighbours gathered quietly along the lane. Some had already endured the same ordeal, others knew they soon would. Old Mrs. O'Shea crossed herself repeatedly. Young Patrick Donovan removed his cap. No one cheered, no one protested. There were too many constables, too much fear. Only silence, the silence of people watching their own future unfold. When the last bundle had been carried outside, Cartwright approached Kevin once more. "I'm sorry." Kevin looked at him for a long time. "I believe you are." "I have no choice." Kevin's voice remained calm, perhaps. Cartwright lowered his eyes. "I'll remember this cottage." Kevin replied quietly, "So will I." The labourers went to work. One climbed onto the thatched roof with a long iron hook. He tore away great handfuls of reed. The roof that Anne and Kevin had repaired every spring came apart within minutes. Another man swung a heavy sledge against the chimney. Stone cracked. Dust filled the air. A second blow. A third. The chimney collapsed inward with a roar. Maeve screamed. Anne pulled her daughter tightly against her chest. Michael turned away. Sean stood frozen. Kevin didn't move. He forced himself to watch. Every stone, every beam, every timber. He wanted to remember exactly how it disappeared. By midday, little remained. The walls that Kevin's father had built were reduced to broken piles of stone. The hearth where countless meals had been shared lay exposed beneath the sky. The rowan tree survived only because it stood outside the boundary. Everything else was gone. One of the labourers scattered lime across the rubble. Another levelled the ground. By evening it looked as though no family had ever lived there. Only the lone rowan tree remained as witness. The Kielys loaded their belongings onto a borrowed cart. Their possessions looked pitifully small. A table, 2 bedsteads, a chest, fishing gear, a spinning wheel, several sacks of clothing, the entire history of one family reduced to a single wagon. Maeve looked back continually as they walked away. Will someone else live there? Kevin swallowed. No. Then why break it? Again he had no answer. They found temporary shelter in the loft of a neighbour's barn. The O'Sheas had little enough themselves, still they made room. "We'll manage somehow," Mrs. O'Shea insisted. For the first time in his life, Kevin slept beneath another man's roof. He hardly slept at all. Rain drummed against the barn roof. Wind found every crack in the timber walls. The smell of damp hay filled the darkness. Beside him, Anne listened to Maeve's breathing. Across the loft, Sean and Michael whispered together. What if we fish farther south? There'll be better catches. We learn enough. We have to. Kevin closed his eyes. His sons still believed hard work could solve anything. He wished he still believed it too. Days became strangely alike. Every morning the brothers left before sunrise. Every evening they returned with fish to sell or barter. Sometimes they earned enough to buy oats. Sometimes only bread. Yet they never complained. We're lucky, Sean would say. We've still got the sea. Kevin admired them. In another life they might have become prosperous fishermen. Instead they spent every waking hour simply trying to keep hunger from the family door. One afternoon Kevin walked back to the site of the old cottage. The meadow had already changed. Surveyors had marked new fence lines with wooden stakes. A shepherd watched over a flock grazing nearby. The transformation had begun astonishingly quickly. Land that had held families for generations was becoming pasture. He stood beneath the rowan tree. Hidden among the grass he found a small object, Maeve's carved wooden boat. It must have fallen unnoticed during the eviction. He picked it up carefully, a child's toy, no larger than his hand. Suddenly the weight of everything descended upon him, not the loss of the house, not the loss of the land, but the knowledge that his daughter would never remember this place as home. He sat beneath the tree until dusk. The following Sunday Father Sullivan sought him out after Mass. I've spoken with the parish priest in Cork. Kevin looked up hopefully. There may be work? The priest hesitated. Not work. Then what? Passage. Kevin's expression hardened. I've no wish to leave Ireland. Many have no choice. I do. The priest placed a hand upon his shoulder. For now. That evening Anne quietly raised the subject. My sister Bridget writes from Liverpool. Kevin remained silent. She says there's work. Still silence. She says we could stay with them. Kevin stared into the fire. This is home. Was home. The words hung between them. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Anne whispered, I don't know how much longer we can keep pretending. Kevin looked around the dimly lit barn, the rough beams, the borrowed blankets, the few possessions stacked in one corner. He wanted to argue. Instead he reached for Anne's hand. I know. Outside, the wind carried the faint smell of the sea. Sean and Michael were preparing their nets for another early tide. They laughed together in the darkness, arguing over whose knot was stronger. Kevin smiled despite himself. As long as the boys had the sea, there was still hope. He could not know that before another month had passed, the sea itself would claim them. Part 4. The Empty Sea. County Kerry, Ireland, September 1847. The sea was calm when the boys left. Kevin watched them from the shore as the small curragh drifted away from the rocks, its tar-blackened hull rising gently with the morning swell. Sean stood at the stern, one hand on the oar, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the pale dawn. Michael sat in the bow, sorting the nets with the confidence of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. Sean raised an arm. We'll be back before supper. Kevin waved. Stay inside the bay if the weather turns. Sean laughed. When have I ever ignored your advice? Michael answered for him. Every time. The brothers' laughter carried over the still water, and Kevin smiled. They'd be home before sunset, just as they always were. Anne was kneading oat bread when Kevin returned to the barn. Did they get away? Aye. The sea, like glass. She nodded. Perhaps they'll have a good catch. Kevin looked toward the open doorway. I think they will. Maeve skipped across the floor, carrying a basket. If they fetch enough, can we have fish pie? Anne smiled. If they catch enough. Little victories had become precious. A full basket of fish, a loaf of bread, a dry night's sleep. No one dared ask for more. By midday the wind changed. Old fishermen noticed it first. The breeze freshened suddenly from the southwest. Clouds gathered low and heavy across the Atlantic. Patrick Donovan looked toward the horizon and frowned. That's not right. His father stopped repairing lobster pots. No. The sea's changing. Within an hour, whitecaps appeared where the morning had been calm. Fishing boats began turning towards shore. One by one they disappeared into the safety of the harbour, except for one. Kevin had gone to barter fish in a nearby village. When he returned, he found several men standing on the beach, staring toward the open water. His stomach tightened instantly. What is it? No one answered. He followed their gaze. Far beyond the breakers, almost lost in the gathering rain, a tiny black shape struggled against the rising sea. His heart sank. Our boat? Patrick Donovan nodded slowly. They'd been trying to come in. For how long? Nearly an hour. Kevin began running toward another curragh pulled up on the beach. We'll go out. 3 men grabbed him. You'll never make it. I've got sons out there, and you'll join them if you try. He fought like a wild animal. It took 4 men to hold him. Across the water, another wave swallowed the little boat from view. For several terrible seconds, nothing. Then it appeared again, smaller, further away. The wind screamed now. Rain lashed the shore. Every man watching knew what the sea intended. Anne arrived carrying Maeve. She looked at Kevin, then toward the water. She understood immediately. No, she whispered. No. Father Sullivan appeared beside her. He removed his hat. No prayers were spoken. Everyone was already praying. Late that afternoon, a piece of broken tar washed ashore. Kevin recognized it instantly. Sean had carved his initials into the handle only months before. He picked it up with trembling hands. There would be no miracle. For 2 days the village searched, every inlet, every cove, every stretch of shoreline. Fishing boats combed the coast whenever the weather allowed. Nothing. On the 3rd morning, Michael's cap was found tangled among seaweed beneath a cliff. On the 5th day, part of the net drifted ashore. By the end of the week, every hope had been exhausted. There was no funeral, no coffin, no grave, only a memorial mass. Father Sullivan spoke gently. The sea keeps some of her children. Kevin scarcely heard him. Anne sat motionless beside Maeve. The little girl held tightly to the wooden boat Michael had carved for her. She had not let it out of her hands since the storm. That evening, the parish gathered quietly in the O'Shea's barn. Someone brought fresh bread. Another family shared potatoes. An old widow offered smoked herring she had been saving for Christmas. No one had much, yet everyone gave something. Kevin looked around the room. These people had almost nothing left themselves, and still they shared it. For the first time since the eviction, he realized what true wealth looked like. Not land, not money, not title, neighbours. Several days later, Mr. Cartwright appeared unexpectedly. He removed his hat. I heard about your boys. Kevin nodded. They were fine young men. They were. Cartwright hesitated. I know my words carry little comfort. No. They carried themselves well. Kevin looked at him. You knew them. I often saw them delivering rent. A silence settled between them. Finally, Cartwright reached into his coat. I shouldn't do this. He produced a small pouch. There were a few sovereigns. Kevin stared at it. I cannot. You can. The estate? The estate knows nothing. Kevin accepted the pouch slowly. Thank you. Cartwright's eyes glistened. There are things a man does because they're ordered. He paused. And things a man does because they're right. Without another word, he mounted his horse and rode away. Kevin never forgot that kindness. The days became quieter, painfully so. No cheerful arguments over fishing nets, no muddy boots outside the door, no laughter drifting in from the shoreline, only silence. Maeve often asked questions. Do you think Sean found heaven? I do. Is Michael with him? He wouldn't leave his brother. She nodded thoughtfully. Then they're still fishing together. Kevin smiled through tears. I expect they are. One evening, Anne unfolded a letter. It had arrived from Liverpool. Her sister Bridget's handwriting covered both sides of the page. There was work in the textile mills. Housing was cramped but available. The children could attend school. Food, though expensive, could be bought. Anne read it twice, then handed it silently to Kevin. He looked at the letter, but did not read it. I can't. We've lost the boys. I know. We've no home. I know. We've no land. I know. Kevin, her voice broke. What future does Maeve have here? He had no answer, only the sound of the wind outside. A fortnight later, Kevin received a letter from his younger brother Patrick in County Roscommon. The handwriting was clumsy but familiar. Come to us. We have little, but we'll share it. There's always room for one more, brother. Whatever happens, you will not face it alone. Kevin folded the letter carefully. Roscommon. It was nearly the opposite side of Ireland, a world away from Kerry. That night he and Anne sat together beneath the stars. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally Anne whispered, "I think we must part." The words struck harder than any blow. She reached for his hands. "Not because I don't love you, I know, but Maeve needs a chance." Kevin closed his eyes. "And I cannot give it." "You can give her something else." "What?" "A father who lets her live." He understood. Liverpool offered hope. Ireland offered memories. Nothing more. They sat until dawn, neither wanting to speak the decision aloud. But both knew it had already been made. Within weeks, husband and wife would walk different roads, one toward England, the other deeper into an Ireland that was changing with every passing day. Neither realised that those separate journeys would carry them toward destinies neither could have imagined.